There was a time when just about every kid in the world wanted an owl to fly to their house and bring them an acceptance letter to Hogwarts. And today, right after watching the trailer for the TV version, I found myself really missing the cast of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone from 2001. Missing the way those faces once opened up a whole magical world for our childhood. But what about now? What happened to those tiny idols of ours, who changed so much it's hard to believe, and who fell hard enough to regret ever tasting the spotlight of fame? Today, let's look back at the cast of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, then and now after 25 years. And make sure you stick around till the end, because I'm also saving 5 of the weirdest and most interesting facts that even some of the most loyal fans might not know. Number 1. Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter. Let's start with the face you just can't leave out of the Harry Potter universe. Daniel Jacob Radcliffe was born on July 23, 1989. He was 12 years old when Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone came out, and this year he is 37. What's worth pointing out is that when he was cast, Daniel was not some huge child star yet. He had appeared in David Copperfield, but for most audiences around the world, this was still a completely new name. Chris Columbus saw Daniel in David Copperfield and almost instantly believed this kid had exactly the right Harry Potter energy. He didn't see that polished child star shine in Daniel. What he saw was something fragile, a little sad, and very real. That was exactly what made the role work. After just one movie, Daniel went from being a little-known boy from London to a global star. Sounds glorious, but that kind of fame usually comes with a pretty brutal price. And Daniel paid that price dearly. After years of living under enormous pressure, he admitted that he once became dependent on alcohol. There was a period when he would go to work without really being fully sober. To me, this is the part of his life that makes Daniel even more memorable. Audiences saw a boy wizard, but behind that was a young man, trying not to get swallowed whole by fame. And maybe that really is the shared curse of child actors who become famous too early. But thankfully, Daniel did not accept living forever in that shadow. He threw himself into difficult, strange, and sometimes shocking roles, like Equus, like he was tearing up the old Harry Potter poster with his own hands so he could start over. And he did it. In 2024, Daniel won a Tony Award, a milestone that showed that little boy from back then had truly become a grown actor. Now he seems calmer, steadier, and most importantly, like he's finally living his own life. Honestly, I felt relieved that he broke free from the shadow of the past before it was too late, before he crashed and could not get back up like so many other child actors. And now, let's set aside the main name for a second and move on to the most famous female role in Harry Potter, Hermione Granger. Number 2. Emma Watson as Hermione Granger. Emma Charlotte Dwyer Watson was born on April 15, 1990 in Paris. She was 11 years old when Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone came out, and this year she is 36. In the first movie, Emma played Hermione Granger, one of the 3 central roles of the whole series, but what matters is that at the time, she was basically not famous at all. For most viewers, Hermione was the first time they had ever seen Emma, and from that point on, she went straight into the ranks of the most recognized teenage faces on the planet. But Emma did not grow up inside that spotlight as easily as people might think. During the Return to Hogwarts reunion, she admitted that there was a time when she thought about leaving the franchise, partly because the pressure was too much, and partly because of the loneliness that fame brought. Emma herself also said that all that public attention when she was little scared her so much that she had to numb herself just to walk through red carpets and public appearances. And what makes me remember Emma is not just that she played Hermione so well, but that she always tried to keep herself from being swallowed by that image. She went to Brown in 2009, graduated with a degree in English literature in 2014, and later spent time studying at Oxford too. That same year, Emma became a UN Women Goodwill Ambassador and launched the He for She campaign. Over the last few years, Emma has stepped away from the screen more and more. She said she was not happy with acting and felt trapped inside that career machine. Right now, Emma lives more privately, is pursuing writing studies at Oxford, and seems to be choosing a life with more control of her own than one built around the spotlight. And honestly, I'm happy when I look at the life she has now. Number 3. Rupert Grint as Ron Weasley. And then there's Rupert Grint, the boy who brought something to that trio that no magic could ever replace: warmth, awkwardness, and something deeply human. Rupert Alexander Lloyd Grint was born on August 24, 1988 in Essex, England. He was 13 years old when Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone came out, and this year he is 38. In the first movie, Rupert played Ron Weasley, Harry's best friend. What's great about Rupert is that he did not walk into this project as some already famous child star. Before that, he had mostly done school plays and a few local stage activities. For him, Harry Potter was his real debut in front of the whole world. The story of how Rupert got cast is still one of my favorite stories from the whole cast. He heard about the audition from the children's show Newsround, then made his own audition tape, pretended to be a drama teacher, and even rapped to ask for the role of Ron. It sounds both gutsy and kind of funny, but also very much in the spirit of this character. And when the movie came out, audiences almost instantly loved him. But living as Ron Weasley for a whole decade was not easy at all. Rupert said there were times when that stretch of life started to feel suffocating, like a loop that would not end. He grew up with the same film crew, the same sets, to the point where the line between Rupert and Ron got thinner and thinner. That's the price of becoming famous too early, and people on the outside usually never see it. And in recent years, Rupert got hit with another public blow when he lost a tax dispute and was ordered to pay £1.8 million. Now Rupert lives much more quietly, works more selectively, and spends a big part of his life with his family. He has 2 daughters with Georgia Groom, and he himself said that becoming a father changed him a lot. And after the central trio of Harry Potter, we're moving on to an adult in that world, Severus Snape. Number 4. Alan Rickman as Severus Snape. Honestly, after watching the trailer for the Harry Potter TV series, the person I missed most was the one who played Snape in the film version. Alan Sidney Patrick Rickman was born on February 21, 1946 in London. He was 55 years old when Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone came out in 2001. But what matters here is that by the time he stepped into Hogwarts, Alan Rickman had already been a major name for a long time. Audiences already knew him from Die Hard Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves' Sense and Sensibility, and a whole run of stage performances that had earned him enormous respect in the profession. What I've always found interesting about Rickman is that behind that elegant and cold exterior was actually a very ordinary background. His father was a factory worker and died when Alan was just 8. The family lived in public housing in London. He did not go straight into acting from the beginning. He studied graphic design, worked as a designer, and even co-founded a company before fully leaving that behind to attend RADA. That's the path of a mature man, not some prodigy who had the red carpet rolled out for him early on. Rickman's private life was also unbelievably quiet. He was with Rima Horton starting in the 1960s, lived with her for decades, and only secretly married her in 2012. He did not make that public until 2015. For a star of that size, that was practically a whole philosophy of life. And then, there's one detail I think audiences really want to know. Rickman's diaries show that there were times when he wanted to leave Harry Potter. He was not always happy with the direction of the series, but in the end, he still chose to stay and see it through to the finish. Maybe the part that breaks my heart most is that at the end of his life, he also had to face cancer. On January 14, 2016, Alan Rickman died of pancreatic cancer at the age of 69. Number 5. Richard Harris as Albus Dumbledore. It's honestly hard to believe, but the calmest old man in Hogwarts used to be one of the wildest stars in British-Irish cinema. Richard St. John Harris was born on October 1, 1930 in Limerick, Ireland. He was 71 years old when Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone came out. In the movie, he played Albus Dumbledore. And to be clear, by the time he entered Harry Potter, Richard Harris had already been a legendary name for a very long time, with This Sporting Life, Camelot, and even Gladiator. But his life did not follow a straight path at all. Harris had once been a very promising rugby player for Munster before he got tuberculosis at 19 and was bedridden for more than 2 years. That break in his life pushed him toward acting. Then, great talent came with a life just as intense. Harris was famous for drinking fights on set trouble, and the press practically attached the word Hellraiser to him for most of his life. There was a point when he hit bottom badly, went bankrupt 2 times, saw his marriage fall apart, and only truly woke up in the early 1980s when he was warned that if he did not stop drinking, he might not have much longer to live. After that, he rebuilt his career himself and made a very late but deeply respected comeback. And you know what? Richard Harris turned down the role of Dumbledore 3 times. In his 70s, he did not want to get tied down to a whole chain of sequels. Then, in the end, it was his 11-year-old granddaughter who forced him to take the part, or else she would not talk to him anymore. And thank goodness he listened to her. After finishing part 2, Harris got sick, was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease, and then died on October 25, 2002 at the age of 72. Number 6. Robbie Coltrane as Rubeus Hagrid. Anthony Robert Macmillan, known as Robbie Coltrane, was born on March 30, 1950 in Scotland. He was 51 years old when Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone came out, and he played Rubeus Hagrid, a supporting role, but one that carried huge emotional weight. And to put it right, Robbie did not come into Harry Potter as an actor who needed this movie to become more famous. Before that, he was already a major star on British television, had won 3 BAFTAs in a row for Cracker, and had appeared in 2 Bond films, GoldenEye and The World Is Not Enough. Robbie studied at the Glasgow School of Art, took the stage name Coltrane from jazz musician John Coltrane, and when he was younger, he had a very clear political streak, to the point that there was a time when people called him Red Robbie. In 1999, he married sculptor Rona Gemmell, had 2 children, and then that marriage fell apart just a few years later. The part of his life that stays with me the most is in his final years. He admitted that alcohol was the biggest weakness of his life. People who knew him described him as smart and funny, but also as someone with a very clear self-destructive streak. Then, his body started making him pay for it. Robbie struggled with his weight diabetes, and especially osteoarthritis. There was a period when he was in pain almost all day. His knees had basically no cartilage left, and he had to use a wheelchair in public. On October 14, 2022, Robbie Coltrane died at the age of 72, bringing his life to a sad, low note. Number 7. Maggie Smith as Minerva McGonagall. Some actors walk into Hogwarts so people will remember their face. Maggie Smith walked in like she already owned the room. Margaret Natalie Smith was born on December 28, 1934 in Essex, England. She was 67 when Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone came out. In the film, she played Minerva McGonagall. But to put it right, by the time she took this role, Maggie Smith had already been a legend for a long time. She had 2 Oscars, a stage career that lasted for decades, and she was the kind of name where just showing up made the whole movie stand up straighter. Harry Potter did not create Maggie Smith. It simply introduced her to another generation of young viewers. What has always fascinated me about Maggie Smith is that she was that famous and still hardly lived like a famous person at all. She was famous for keeping her private life private, and the people around her all knew Smith was never into the whole celebrity game. She was once married to actor Robert Stevens, had 2 sons, Chris Larkin and Toby Stevens, and later went through another marriage with playwright Beverly Cross, who stayed by her side until his death in 1998. That was not a flashy life. It was a life kept very carefully guarded, almost the complete opposite of the era she lived in. The tragic part of Maggie Smith's story was her health. She had Graves's disease starting in 1988. Then, in 2007, at a stage in old age, when other people were already thinking about slowing down, she had to fight breast cancer. Smith said that illness had knocked sideways really hit her hard, to the point where she felt afraid of going back on stage. What is so admirable is that she kept working anyway. Then, on September 27, 2024, Maggie Smith died at a hospital in London at the age of 89. Number 8. Tom Felton as Draco Malfoy. There are faces that show up and people remember them right away, and Draco Malfoy is one of them. Thomas Andrew Felton was born on September 22, 1987 in Surrey, England. He was 14 when Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone came out, and this year he is 39. In the first movie, Tom played Draco Malfoy, a supporting role, but one with such strong recognition that just about anybody who saw Part 1 remembered that platinum blonde kid. Unlike some of the other cast members, Tom was not completely brand new. He had already been in The Borrowers and Anna and the King before entering Hogwarts, and he had even auditioned for both Harry and Ron before ending up as Draco. But becoming famous early did not make Tom's teenage years any easier. He admitted himself that going to school with bleached blonde hair and the image of that mean little wizard kid did not make life outside the set pleasant at all. The bigger struggle came after Harry Potter. Tom said he genuinely floundered with the profession, got stuck too tightly in Draco's shadow, then slipped into a dark period with alcohol and mental health struggles. In his memoir, he said he drank to escape, that his family and team stepped in, and that he even walked out of rehab in less than 24 hours before finally coming back and facing the problem for real. What I like about Tom now is that he seems a whole lot calmer. He came back to play Draco on Broadway like a really beautiful full-circle moment, and he also reached out to encourage the boy who will play Draco in the new TV version. That is a really lovely detail. In real life, Tom Felton is much kinder than the boy audiences used to hate with a passion. Number 9. Matthew Lewis as Neville Longbottom. Matthew David Lewis was born on June 27, 1989 in Leeds. He was 12 when Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone came out, and this year he is 37. In the first film, Matthew played Neville Longbottom, a supporting role but a very memorable one because he was that student who was always clumsy shy and looked like he was always half a beat behind the whole world. What is interesting is that Matthew was not some kid standing in front of a camera for the first time. He had already been acting since the mid-1990s before walking into the audition in Leeds and landing Neville. To become the character, he even had to wear fake teeth shoes, 2 sizes bigger padded clothes, and they even adjusted his ears to match the production's original vision. But the part audiences remember most about Matthew came after Harry Potter. The kid they made look awkward. For Neville later ended up becoming one of the most talked about glow-ups in the whole cast. People called it Neville's glow-up, but I think the more important thing is that Matthew did not let himself live off that joke. He just kept going pretty quietly. In the years after Potter, Matthew showed up in the Syndicate Ripper Street, Me Before You All Creatures Great and Small, and more recently, he was confirmed for The Family Secret for 2026. Matthew married Angela Jones in 2018 after the two of them met at a Wizarding World event at Universal Orlando. You could say he is one of the rare people who has both a career and a private life that are not dazzling but peaceful enough. And as somebody who loves the Harry Potter universe, I'm honestly happy about that. Number 10. Bonnie Wright as Ginny Weasley. Do you remember Ginny Weasley? That little girl entered the story really early, but it took years before audiences truly looked closely at Bonnie Wright. Bonnie Francesca Wright was born on February 17, 1991, in London. She was 10 when Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone came out, and this year she is 35. In the first film, Bonnie played Ginny Weasley, who at the time was still just a small supporting role in that big, noisy Weasley family. Bonnie had almost no significant acting experience before Harry Potter. Her family encouraged her to audition because she looked so much like Ginny in the books, and then she basically grew up alongside the whole series over an entire decade. What makes Bonnie's story so different from a lot of the others is that she did not chase the movie star path after Harry Potter. Once the series ended, Bonnie studied writing and directing, then gradually moved into short films, creative projects, and environmental work. The relationship that got the most public attention during her younger years was with Jamie Campbell Bower. The two of them were once engaged, then split up in 2012. After that, her life got a whole lot more private. Bonnie now feels like a very different image from Hollywood. She married Andrew Lococo in 2022, had her son Elio in 2023, and has just confirmed she is pregnant with her second baby, due this fall. What I like about Bonnie is that she does not carry the bitterness of a former actor who got left behind. Quite the opposite, she has even encouraged the cast of the new TV adaptation to stick close to the books and create their own version. And now, let's move on to the last two names before I get to the 5 most interesting facts. Number 11. James Phelps and Oliver Phelps as Fred and George Weasley. James Andrew, Eric Phelps, and Oliver Martin. John Phelps were both born on February 25, 1986 in Birmingham. The two brothers were 15 when Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone came out, and this year they are 40. Oliver is older than James by 13 minutes. In the first film, they played George and Fred Weasley, two supporting roles, but ones with huge recognition. The funny part is that even after they were cast, the two of them still did not know who would play Fred and who would play George until right before the first script reading. That really was the perfect beginning for the most chaotic twins in the Weasley family. What I like about James and Oliver is that they grew up pretty well inside a franchise that was way too huge. No loud crash, no burning their own lives down just to keep their names in the papers. Oliver got married in 2015 and now has 2 daughters. James got married in 2016, and in recent years he has even run marathons to raise money and awareness for endometriosis after his wife was diagnosed with it. The two brothers still work together now through Fantastic Friends and Harry Potter Wizards of Baking, which means they still keep that connection to the old world, but in a much more grown-up and likable way. And honestly, if you think this cast is already interesting enough, there are still a few things behind the first movie that even longtime fans may not have heard all the way through. 5 interesting facts about Harry Potter. And honestly, if you've stayed with me this far now, is when fans of the Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone movie really get to huddle together. These are 5 facts for the people who stayed till the end. And I'm curious too, out of these 5, which one surprised you the most? Fact 1. The hardest thing about the first movie was not the castle, not the magic, but finding the right boy to play Harry Potter. The production team watched 5,000 boys audition, and the more they searched, the more it felt like nobody was truly right. Back then, Chris Columbus had seen Daniel Radcliffe in David Copperfield in 1999, then immediately turned to the casting director and said, "This is it. This boy is Harry." The problem was that casting thought that was almost impossible, because Daniel's parents wanted their son focused on school, not thrown into the spotlight, and all the attention this role would definitely bring. So they kept searching, kept interviewing boys from all over the world, and still could not find anyone who made people feel as sure as Daniel did. Then, in a way that feels more like a movie than the movie itself, a producer and writer from the film happened to run into Daniel and his father at a movie theater. From that meeting, they started talking, started slowly persuading them, and the rest is something we all already know. Fact 2. Now here's one that's perfect for Snape fans. Alan Rickman was personally chosen by J.K. Rowling to play Severus Snape, and she did not just hand him the character and leave it at that. Rowling also gave Rickman some very specific guidance about Snape, including important details about the character's past, things audiences did not know at the time and would not learn until the final novel. Fact 3. Now here's a cuter fact, and it feels very Hogwarts. To make the school setting feel more real, the child actors still had to do homework right there on set. So, while we were sitting outside watching magic, the kids in the movie still had to finish a scene and then put their heads down and do schoolwork like usual. Honestly, that may be the detail that made Hogwarts feel more like a real school than any special effect ever could. Hearing that, does anybody suddenly feel a little sorrier for the main trio, Fact 4? And here's a detail that book fans will probably love. At first, the production tried hard to make the child characters look as close to the novel descriptions as possible. They had Daniel Radcliffe wear green contact lenses to get him closer to how Harry was described in the books. At the same time, they also gave Emma Watson fake teeth so Hermione would match the book version more closely. Sounds reasonable. But once they actually tried it, nothing worked out very well. Daniel's eyes reacted badly to the contact lenses, and Emma could not speak clearly with the fake teeth in. So both ideas got dropped. Fact 5. And this may be the fact that made the most fans breathe a sigh of relief. At first, Warner Brothers had considered making the entire Harry Potter series as computer-animated films, or even combining several of the novels into just one movie. The reason was not exactly irrational. The studio worried that if production took too long, the child actors would grow up too fast, and the cast might have to be replaced between installments. Luckily, J.K. Rowling vetoed both ideas. She did not want the books combined, and she did not want to go in the animated direction. And in the end, the studio decided to make all 8 movies, so the same cast could go through the whole journey with the audience. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was not just the first movie. For a whole lot of people, it was the first time they saw the doors of Hogwarts open, the first time they heard that opening music, and the first time they believed a world like that really might exist somewhere, just waiting for them to step into it. So now, I want to ask you a very small question. When do you remember watching this movie for the first time? Was it in theaters, on DVD, or on some old evening that you still remember even now? And out of the cast today, which face makes you feel, time has flown the fastest? And one more question, just quietly. Is anybody here actually excited and already planning to watch the new TV version? I'm pretty curious about that. But no matter where the future version goes for a whole generation of viewers, those faces from 2001 were the first people who opened that door for us. But there is something interesting about the shows that live the longest in our memories. The more familiar they feel, the easier it is to think we already know everything about them. But behind it, there is an entire layer of backstage stories that many viewers have never heard. So today, we are heading back to Hazard County and uncovering the most fascinating secrets behind the Dukes of Hazzard. And trust me, a few of them may make you see this series in a completely different way.